in Chennai. So we have had 2 such sessions before in Chennai, and this is our 3rd one. So I'm Mansa, I'm your host for the evening. So UpStart is a series of meetups for the startup community, and it is hosted by PayU. So PayU is the leading online payment provider for startups, for SMBs, for telecom, and also for airlines as well. So in this session of UpStart, we are going to talk about funding. We have our 4 speakers today. Chandu Nair, he's an angel investor with the Chennai Angels. We have Vaidya, the founder and CEO of Classle. We have Vijaykrishna Ramanathan, he's the founder at Codemojo.io. And we have Shri Harish with us, the co-founder and COO at aahaa Stores Private Limited. So if any of you are live tweeting this event, use the hashtag UpStart and tag our page UpStart and CodeUp. So I would like to ask Chandu Nair to come up on the stage. And his topic is what investors look for. So you all would be very interested in this. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for making the time on a Saturday evening. So how many of you are already running your own business out here? All, almost all. Okay. How many have got funded? Funded? 1, 2, 3. Angel or Series A or what?
Angel and
Series A. You?
Angel.
Seed. And from a network or from individuals? Chennai. Individuals. Not friends and family. Okay, good. So we have 3 guys with whom we can share our experiences. I'm going to start off with a slide from one of my colleagues in the Chennai Angels. He's a pretty leading investor. And this is what he said very recently when he kind of recommended a deal. So he said, what is this? It doesn't go down. Doesn't it? So he said, there are 4 things which generally he keeps looking for in any deal. So first thing really for most people is the team. The second, he said, is the market. The third, he said, is the kind of, what is it called? The product itself and the uniqueness of the product. And the fourth is, how much traction do you have? And his point of view was, he sat in hundreds of presentations and pitches the last few years. And very rarely does he see an alignment of these 4, especially in an early stage deal. So if you are looking for funding, ask yourself this question: where do you stand on any of these 4 dimensions, and how can you really rate yourself in some manner? You might be lucky to get the first guy. I must tell you, the investing climate, while it looks good sometimes when you read the pink papers, in reality is not all that good. That even for an angel investor, the situation is a little alarming at times. Just to give you a perspective so that you get a sense of it, for an angel investor, he or she starts making money only if more than 1 in 4 deals actually goes on to raise follow-on funding or gets an exit in some manner. Today the situation is such that barely 7% or 8% actually make it. So for an angel investor, therefore, the situation is a lot more riskier than it was much earlier, okay, in the heydays. And we're not talking about too far back. So this is something that you might want to consider. So let me kind of rewind to a few years back when all you needed was something like this. Many people, you remember the old music group called Boney M. Okay, they were put together by a producer. They were not actually people who knew each other in some way or worked with each other. They were just put together by a, kind of a producer, somehow packaged well, and somehow they managed to sell. So what we have seen many times is very hastily assembled, on paper, crackjack teams. Typically what we would call twice distilled, get them with an IIT plus IIM label, get a clone of a foreign, usually US kind of an idea, kind of make them do some glib presentations with fancy kind of presentation pyrotechnics, and then you're good to go. And what you do is tap into investors who had what we call FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. Boss, I'm missing the next Uber. I'm missing the next, Airbnb, that kind of thing. That has, luckily, for the same people, that era seems to have gone. It may come for some of you. You please wait for that time. But for the rest of us, that era has gone. And it didn't happen to everybody. For every one fellow who got a sucker like that, there were hundreds of others who languished by the wayside. So imagine that it's a lottery, and if you get such a sucker, consider yourself very lucky and fortunate. The other guys did not make it. Also, there's something called the flavor of the day. 2010, I think, or 9, or something, you had 500 plus horizontal e-commerce guys. Today, I doubt you can count more than 2 or 3. If you can count more than 3, it's a snap, but no deal. Okay, you can't go beyond that box. Okay, so it's very scary when you look at the success rates, right? Because today, if you're a startup, there's one frightening statistic that all of us know: 9 out of 10 enterprises will fail. But please understand, that doesn't mean 9 out of 10 startup entrepreneurs will fail. It means you have a chance to pick yourself up and do it again. That's what it means. So the classic thing you have to remember in all this, it's a long distance kind of a game. And sometimes you earn, other times you learn. If you are willing to operate with that motive, you're pretty okay. So what happens today in somebody like the Chennai Angels? Okay, what I'm doing is a very complicated looking paragraph, but I kind of broken it down. Can you just okay, next previous. So the first thing is to ask yourself is, do you have a good, sticky, aligned team? What I mean by this is, many times people have put together, like I said, these hastily assembled teams who haven't worked together, who haven't sweated together. But one of the key things is, have you got people who are aligned even value systems wise, who are in it for the long haul, who are in it to build a business, not just come for a free ride or just try to look at it as a mercenary bunch. A lot of mercenary types out there. In fact, there are many places where they say meet your co-founder kind of thing. But be very careful of all these hastily put things. It doesn't work out very well. It's only like a speed date or something. Ends up badly most of the time. Unless you want to live in a tinder box. Then you're good to go. The second thing is, have you got something which is fairly unique, defensible? They use words like moats and all. Don't worry about those words. What it means is, have you got something which is defensible, which is something you can protect. Third thing is fairly substantially different, okay, differentiated. What I mean here is, it doesn't have to be something completely unique. Like, take something as ordinary as idli batter. A guy like Mustafa took idli batter and made ID, right? Now the way he did it was very different. The whole approach to building that business was completely different. But idli batter has been around for like ever. And everybody in this part of the world doesn't ever forget what that white, sticky, kind of gooey, pasty liquid or fluid, what it resembles. But he managed to build 100 plus crores business out of it. So I'm not talking you have to think of something dramatically different. Somebody like Goli Vada Pav got funded by Venture East. So it's not like you have to create something radically new all the time. But there are lots of existing businesses which lend themselves. Take paperboard. It's just juice. But the way the man has looked at packaging, the way he has created new flavors. I've taken 3 examples from one industry, food. But people have looked at it pretty differently and have managed to create some kind of value. Similarly, in this part of the country, look at somebody like Ramraj. Something like a Veshti, he's made it like the most recognizable brand. So think of ways that you can create something which is highly differentiated, highly defensible. Because once you build a brand, even if it sounds on surface, Ramraj doesn't look as a sexy brand like Nike or something, Greek goddess and all that. You don't look like even like a Tamil god maybe when you put Ramraj. But you're okay still. When you build a few thousand crores, you're good. Take somebody like Suguna. Again, a lot of people don't know it's a 1 billion, close to 1 billion plus business. Selling what? Chicken. Right? So each of these guys have actually built very large, very defensible, very differentiated businesses. So ask yourself, in each of these ordinary looking businesses, what is it that I can create out there? Third, whatever advantage you have, the problem is there's always somebody hungrier than you. out there. He's snapping at your heels even as you think you're the master. Not everybody is like the University of Notre Dame in the US, which is a famous football team. So many seasons they were number one. Nobody else could kind of, beat them for quite some time. But they also will become number two someday. So there's always somebody. So one thing that you have to figure out is what will keep me there. Getting to number one is probably sometimes easier than staying at number one, as we saw with Usain Bolt. Right? Finally, even the god of lightning was struck. Right? So you can find out that not everything is there all the time. So what do you need to do? Then I told you, my colleague talked about a market. Sometimes you might be the best guy, but in a hopelessly small market. Doesn't make any difference for me as an investor. So I'd like to see that market that you're looking at is a growing market, is sizable in itself. And that even the niche you might look at in that market, because there's something called the total addressable market, there's something called the segment addressable market, and all of that. We'll not get into those details today, but please understand that that's your work to do. And this, finally, somebody's paying you money. So what will make your target customer, I'm using very carefully, every word is like very carefully chosen. Your target customer, consistently, that's a paying customer. Airbnb guy made a wonderful statement. He said, I don't care about these hundreds of thousands of Facebook likes. I care about 100 loves, because the loves will pay. So I'm looking at those kind of guys who love you, who will pay because they love you. Right? So consistently paying you for what you have to offer and choose you over competing alternatives. So each of these actually is a pretty hard thing to do. I'll tell you why. Just take the team. I was one of 5 partners when I first started off. 12 years we had a good innings. In the 10th year we started having difficulties. 12th year 2 of us had to buy the other 3 out because things became really terrible. You'd think after knowing each other for 10 years and after having studied together and all that, we should have known each other pretty well. Shit happens. Right? Then we had to buy, 2 of us had to buy the other 3 out. You lose time, energy, money because you're fighting an internal battle when you should be outside. So one of the things I've done as an exercise in some cases, and it's a very painful exercise when you have 3-4 co-founders, is to figure out roles, responsibilities, remuneration, and arrive at a founder MOU. Believe you me, I think it's better to be a woman in labor than try to get 4 co-founders to agree on something. You'll be surprised. Sorry, I'm not being sexist.
No.
Okay? But what I'm trying to say is it's so challenging to get 4 people to agree who should be CEO, what should be the title of the other 3 guys, who will get what kind of money and why. Can I leave suddenly? All these are problems. Getting an aligned team is so problematic today. Vaidya will also tell you in the next thing. Okay? And lastly, let me end with this slide and I'll throw it open for some questions. Don't forget some of these things, One, you should show that you understand money. And this is where I sometimes think, if you look at the e-commerce field, guess who are the last men standing? All of them belong to the Bania community. In some way or the other, Bansals. On one side, Agarwals, somewhere else, Bhavish Agarwal. In Ola, Bansals, Flipkart. Snapdeal also another Kunal Bal Bansal. Why is it that after all this new age bloody thing and all that, still those chappies have come out on top? They understand money. You and I learning A, B, C, D, aahaa, ee. They are learning 25, 55, 1 rupee. So by the time you start saying A, B, C, they have already calculated, if I have found out return, payback, IRR, everything. Then left you standing. So understand money. Interesting. Very good to understand money and its dynamics. Second, understand that you also have to show skin in the game. I always use this word. Many entrepreneurs in between became high on OPM, which is other people's money. You got to start smoking your own, charas first. Okay, roll your own stuff. Show me that you have it in you not just in terms of time, money, but also time and energy, but also in terms of some money that you put in. That shows me that you actually are committed. Difference I'll explain in this way. The pig and the hen said, tomorrow, the pig said, tomorrow is the farmer's birthday. The hen said, excellent. It is indeed the farmer's birthday. Let's do one thing. Let's celebrate. And how do we celebrate? The pig asked. Hen said, let's give him an egg and bacon breakfast. So the pig said, boss, there is one problem there. He said, what? It only requires involvement from your side, but total commitment from mine. Many times entrepreneurs show involvement and expect investors to show commitment. Right? Cannot be like that, buddy. You have to show commitment too. So show me how you will show that commitment. So one thing you can do is check from other experienced investors as also other entrepreneurs who got funded, how did that happen? And how they managed to convince the other person. So one of the things I always ask people to figure out is, look at it from the point of view of the investor. Show him that you understand that he's also got something out of it. So two things usually investors are interested in, okay, with respect to money, apart from helping the entrepreneur and giving back and all those nice words. Two things they're interested in: return of capital first, second, return on capital. Right? If you're able to show that you can do this, boss, you got somebody who's willing to listen to you a little bit more. You can see some invisible rubbing of hands. Okay. The other thing people do is they think that when they are ready, the investor is also warm. It's like wooing a girl or a girl trying to woo a boy. You have to cultivate much in advance of your actually wanting things to happen on that day. So please be around where investors are, spend time with them, get ways to meet the right kind of investor. Not everybody who has money is your investor. You have to choose the right guy for yourself. That only takes some cultivation. You're figuring out which guy is good for what kind of things. For example, somebody like Rajan Anandan, Vishal Gondal, for those who want to build a consumer internet kind of business, they are good guys. So they understand it, they bring you smart money in that space. You want to do SaaS, B2B, folks like, Girish or Axel, Shekhar, those kind of people are good people for you to talk to. You shouldn't be talking to anybody and everybody. So figure out who you should be talking to and get to them right there. And lastly, why I'm saying this is, other things being equal, folks do business with people they know and trust. Unfortunately, world over, other things not being equal, people will still do business with folks they know and trust. So with these few words, I'm finishing. It's about 15 minutes that I've spoken. Now I will throw it open for any questions, clarifications. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions, doubts? Hard, not so hard, easy?
Who was the one who made that quote?
Which one?
The one that you started with?
Which is, that one? Let's say it's a good name. Let's say that he's one of the biggest entrepreneurial names in Chennai. And leave it in that. A good chap. Yeah.
So we got a question online. What kind of opportunity exists for Indian software services startup?
Indian software services startup.
So probably from your conversation, he just wanted this cleared for him.
Indian software services. Okay, so let me answer it in a couple of ways. Now, first off, every business, there are businesses which go through a cycle. So many years ago when I started a KPO, I rode that wave. When some people started, what are they called, analytics, they rode that wave. Now, many times people come into a business when the wave is kind of subsiding. So if you're looking overall at software services, people are saying that it is kind of more than cross maturity, heading into, one set of people think is heading into steady decline, the classic software services model. So if you look at it, so short answer is, if you're a classic software services model, boss, go somewhere else, try to bootstrap, be happy with the money you get, maybe you'll end up with a lifestyle business. but you're looking at some niche within it. There are people who manage to still build businesses, say for example in testing services for the BFSI, some parts of the BFSI segment. If you're able to figure out some niche which is still growing and you're able to show a scalable business out of it and your ability to tap into it, then you might have some people still interested in it. But I think overall, I think you'll have to be careful because every business goes through a cycle and right now software services is past maturity. Yep.
What can I expect more than money?
What you should expect are the following. One, somebody who will be willing to spend time and energy with you in some way. So if you take, for example, that instance I talked about consumer internet marketing, one, sometimes you might have trouble getting the right kind of talent because you're a startup. If you have a good investor, some investors can help you put together a startup. So one of the companies that, for example, we invested in, we helped to get the CTO for the entrepreneur who was actually a business development and the ops type of person, but didn't have a proper CTO. So we helped get talent. So in one particular case. Second thing is many times you need connections to customers. Now because you've been around a little more, folks tend to give you a little more credibility than just a fresh off the factory, startup. So it cuts short the time. Many times lead times in B2B particularly are 6 to 12 months. So it cuts short the time for a lot of proof of concept and other kinds of things. So that is one. That's the second thing. Third is, for example, when I invested in a couple of companies, you want to get more funders, investors. If I say or somebody else says, look buddy, I have invested some money, I think it's a good opportunity, look at it. Its chances are those investors would tend to look at it more closely than they would if that the startup directly went. So multiple ways. So what you should look at is somebody who is willing to spend the time and energy with you. But from your side, you must respect that. So many times people take it for granted. The moment you take it for granted, you are in trouble.
Hi, I'm Satya. I run a company called Furniture Magic. This is a hyper-local furniture marketplace. My question to you today is what do you think about single founders? Being a single founder myself, I've reached out a lot of angels where they feel it's comfortable for them to get a co-founder where they have 2 or 3 founders together. So what is your take on that?
See, single founders are always a risk. When I was running a company, you'll be surprised, and I was dealing with customers. And I had this ISO 27001 risk meeting. I'm not talking about investors, okay? I'm talking about even customers. One of the things we had was both the 3 of us co-founders. 2 co-founders should never travel in the same vehicle or plane. Seriously, it was what is called a fatal risk. Okay, so if major customers sometimes can insist on it, investors will always look at ways to de-risk. So single founder is a little bit tricky for many fellows. Having said that, you recently had a company called Matrimony, which IPO'd. Who's the co-founder? So, many times people might take considered bets if you have managed to build a team. You take somebody like Raju Venkatraman. Raju Venkatraman has built 3-4 businesses. The latest one being Medall. He's really the main co-founder, main founder. But he's able to stitch together a team of key people. So if you're a single founder, if you're able to show that you're putting together a team which is actually helping in some way in de-risking it, and you then partake, you give equity also to some of them or show them a path. The key thing here is, like I said, there's return of capital and there's return on capital. So which means what can you do to de-risk and mitigate all these uncertainties?
Should I be so should I be pitching slightly different to versus an angel versus a VC? So I think the same story. But do I pitch slightly different?
It depends which stage you are in. If you're very, very early stage, a VC won't even give you time of day.
Revenue stage.
Revenue also today, even angels are looking at revenue because they found that just looking at ideas is not helping them much for getting validation. VCs don't look at you if you're not doing a considerable number. You won't get the time of day. You might get an associate or an analyst And you might get very thrilled that you got a call from Sequoia or some big name like that. But it will usually be one junior flunky who will come and do research to see whether any time that you might potentially affect their portfolio company. So just because you got a call from a firm doesn't mean that it's a good thing to have.
That's a good one.
Good. It's true.
True.
Not everybody who comes smiling at your door is a lamb. Most often it's a wolf.
You are the research.
It's happened so many times. The second thing is, you have to be careful. You have to pick and choose the time when you're going, and you have to pick and choose your investor. It's a little painful at times to have that hard confidence and that discipline. It's very tough, but it might be worth it.
Hello, sir. Raghu here. I run a startup called Celebraton. So, what do you think is the difference between a startup and traditional business?
Usually, those words that I mentioned, the traditional business. Okay, let me give it to you in terms of what should I call it, XY thing. There is voluntary entrepreneur and involuntary entrepreneur. Okay, one side. Other side, there is a fellow who is building what I think is a low growth orientation versus a high growth orientation. Now, if I take a voluntary guy and a high growth orientation, okay, he's building a scalable business. Okay, and in that, if I add that, it's very differentiated, it's highly defensible, and it is quite, the classic adjectives that Startup India uses, some of those things, then he is like a startup. Many of the guys who are in the traditional side are usually typically, I'm not saying they're always like that, little bit low growth orientation, building typically a lifestyle business. Okay, number one, and very undifferentiated, lots of commodity types. So if you are building just another lathe kind of operation, for me you're then a traditional business. You might be the best lathe guy, you might be very good at it. You're building a conventional restaurant, you're still, for me, a very ordinary, very traditional guy. But if you're a Goli Vada Pav type at that time, 5 years back, then you're a kind of a differentiated fellow. Today, if you're a conventional diagnostics guy, I would say you're nothing very great. But you wanted to be a Theranos superior, really a genuine Theranos, not like Elizabeth type, then I would say, hey, you've got something very unique about it. So it's slightly a subtle difference, but essentially it's on the uniqueness, differentiation, and the fact that the models are very different. But for me, many times, ultimately, it is does this business make money? Can it be scaled? Can I exit? Also matter a lot more. So there are people who like Capricorn Foods and all who still are doing conventional business, but who get plenty of VC plus PE funding subsequently. There are lots of people like that. You see lots of money still going to real estate from PEs, no?
Right.
And what can be older than land? Okay? Yep.
So, I'm still thinking about the question, how to differentiate the call from investment firm, whether they are calling for investment or...
Ask to speak to the partner.
Okay.
If he wants to take your call, then maybe you are interesting enough. And you should know the name of the partner. Just try that. Okay. Or if you have, try to use your chartered accountant or advisor, somebody you know, just ask him, boss, contingency. Tell him that you won't pay him money till he succeeds. Okay. Try and put somebody in between. And shepherd all those calls that side. So you can always say, oh, I didn't know he spoke like that. I'll tell you this, okay? When dowry is being discussed, all of us say you should not take dowry, but dowry is still discussed, right? Why do both spouses to be never discuss it? Because if the deal clicks, they have to sleep together. And then they say, Bugger, you spoke like that. That day you said like this. Put intermediary. say, unfortunately, this is the case. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to be sexist or trying to be any of those things. What I'm trying to say is, boss, you have to be smart in your own way. You look for your interest, but while you're looking for your interest, the enlightened self-interest is what matters. In your interest, if you look at the other's interest and your interest, you'll find that actually then you'll make a good deal out of it. I'll just give you an example. When I got funded by my VC, the VC first came for the first 2-3 rounds of discussions that we had, for example, with the people who are doing our whole office, because running into some millions and crores of rupees, the new facility and all that. After the third meeting, the VC realized that we were actually more hard-nosed in our negotiation than he would have ever been, number one. Number two, he realized that we had bought the cars, not in the company's name, but in our personal names, even though we were paying EMI, much before that. Now, when an investor sees these small things, that you're careful with how you're using money, you're very scrupulous and very, you have certain values that you will not tax the company. The way you travel, till we made a certain amount of money, we were only traveling economy. We never traveled business class or stayed in fancy hotels. So during off-season, we'll stay in Manhattan, for example, in New York. If it's season, we'll stay in Queens or in New Jersey. So when an investor sees that you're going down to that granular detail and you're being very careful, 2007-8 financial crisis happened. The way we cut down costs, we even changed the softness of the toilet paper. Cream biscuits were eliminated. Only ordinary biscuits. When you show that you are very careful, an investor is then more confident that my money is in safe hands. That's what I mean. I'm not trying to mean it in a very, be cheapskate, but be very careful. And understand that it is actually money in trust, not your money to use and blow as you please. Okay? Thank you very much. I will now hand over to Vaidya.
Thank you for the session, Chandu. Handing it over to Vaidyanathan, and he will speak from his own experience, and you guys can ask questions later. As something else, so your puzzle sheets will be collected at the end of his speech. So please, at the end of his talk, we'll collect it later. Yeah, I know. So we'll collect it after he's done. So please keep it ready.
Okay, good evening, folks. So this is like a typical Indian movie, right? The hero has done this part, now it's item number.
What do you think?
So kind of going to touch on most of it. I'm not that big like him in terms of being in the investment field and so on. But I have my own investments, I have my own company, been on both the sides. And I tend to split hairs, and it serves me pretty well, so bear with me on this. So first thing is, and again, I'm just going to give you 4 points and then leave it open for conversation. Yeah. First thing, especially in today's climate, and most of you are pretty young, not that put that much time in your professional life. So there's a lot of support. Be clear what you want. Is it funding or investment? Because the attitude is different. Today you get a lot of funding. You go here, you go to a research park, you get something, you go here, you get something. Those are good money. Okay? Please be very, very, keep your eyes and ears open. It's a good bit of funding available. That's one thing. Which is, by and large, there is a lot of softness around it. It's only extremely hard and hard-nosed. And then the other side is investment. So investment, Chandu mentioned all the R's. So ROC and all those things will immediately wander into the play because the person on the other end is not a sugar daddy, right? Most likely, and this is my experience, you'll get two kinds of people who will try to invest. One who are men of means. Most of the time it's men. Men of means, they are rich people. They want to, especially in today's environment, want to have the high, I'm investing in startups. So there are people. Make sure that there are professional investors with whom these people come with, because an investor who doesn't appreciate the risk is a bad investor. Okay, they'll start getting nervous very quickly. And then the other one is an investor who had been through the grind, who knows what risk is, who had seen gazillion failures. Also try to look through the portfolio, look through their, so anybody whom you're talking to, go through their LinkedIn, etc., to know sure that whether this person has actually gone through the grind. Okay, even if you do not get investment from them, interacting with them is free consulting. Long time back when I was starting to play golf, this was in States, one of the tip I got was go to the driving range, find one of the old seasoned player, stand next to them and hit a few bad balls. Okay, they can't help it. They'll come and start showing you how to put the stance, all those things. They'll start teaching you. It's $100 worth of lesson. Okay, so a good investor who've been through the grind is something like that. They just can't helping you. So make sure that you do your homework. So first takeaway: are you looking for funding? Are you accessing funding or accessing investment? The attitudes are totally different. Number one. Second thing is find out why the other person is doing this investment. Okay, so there's a range of reasons. And most likely if you go and explore around, they would have given a talk here, talk there, and so on. You'll find certain dominant themes coming in that. So you'll know why they are doing it. Make sure that your view aligns with the way they look at the world. Or else you don't have a match. Okay, so this almost sounds like matrimony, but believe me, I'm talking from almost very intimate experience. Intimate in a good way. So make sure that why are they doing it? There are a few people who do that because they've been through the grind, they made the money, they don't want to do the whole thing again, but want to live that. Okay. And then there are many other flavors who come in between. So long time back when I started my current venture, I turned down 3 or 4 people because they are people just of means. Okay. So I even once at that time I was a lot more cocky because just then I was exiting a very high-paying job. So flush with money and so on. So you kind of just walk around like at least if not $1 million, at least $500,000. So this guy says, I said, why are you investing in my company? He said, I have money. I said, so do I. So why are you investing in my company? Of course, the conversation ended 2 minutes later. But no, you may not be like that. But know why they are doing that. Third, ask yourself, what if I do not get external support, external financial support? In today, it is a lot easier because a lot of things you have the shared services, shared everything. Okay, so which brings down the cost. Then you have this incubation. A lot of people look at it kind of nicely. I was talking to the gentleman, and he was incubated and accelerated and so on, wherein he got a lot of momentum and support. And I'm just trying to be lighthearted, but you get those kinds of things, wherein you actually don't have to look for funding. Okay, and try doing that. What will you close and go? Is it just an idea, or are you actually pursuing something worthwhile? Do you have the passion behind it? Believe me, you should see. I mean, it's been 8 years since I started this company. 8 years back, I had a lot more hair and it was all black. Okay, so I will just say that and leave it there. So it's a lot of grind. And at least now in the past 1 to 2 years, it is a little respectful, actually. But it's really hard. Because you're good. You can crack all these things. You get into that thing, and you'll make around 20 times, 30 times what you're doing right now. And every moment is a moment of growth. So knowing that your passion is driving it and you really have your skin in the game. Chandu mentioned that you got to have a skin in the game because others like it. So long time back, there was I don't know, it still comes. There was this Tamil magazine called Kalki. So they Diwali, they put the special issue. I still remember this. So here are these two birds sitting in a telegraph pole and looking up, and there's a plane going. You know the cartoon where they put the smoke in the back of the plane? Why is that bird going that fast, man? If your tail catches on fire, you'll also go that fast. So this is a skin in the game business. Okay? You tend to be very prudent. You tend to be very careful. You tend to be incredibly focused. Okay? And even if you think that you can get money, this is an advice which was given to me about 20 years back by one very great CEO. Even if you can get money, don't get more money than what you need because you'll do stupid things. Okay? Suddenly you'll have a fancy office, you would want all the high-priced cars, and you do all kinds of stupid things. And you get mentally soft. Okay? Which means it will instantly show in the business, and the investors they're not sugar daddies, pretty soon they want the return. Okay? So that brings me to the fourth point. Understand the accountability that comes with all the support you're getting. Okay. Things like there are words for that: fiduciary responsibility, you are in trust, and so on and so forth. Have a deep appreciation for that because you're incredibly accountable, and that's what Chandu was alluding to in terms of how you act. Do you kind of just throw money just because you can, or you're very prudent? I mean, instead of a cream biscuit, you just use a biscuit. I'll tell you a simple thing. Sometime back, somebody did, and we had a cafe coffee day mission inside. And then all our associates, they said we can save money. We got rid of it, and everybody are going to the shop around the corner. The cost, and I said, yeah, I'll pay for it. Instead of 6,000 rupees, it's 2,000 rupees. Just 4,000 rupees. Do it 2 months, I can pay 1 month's salary for somebody. Things like that. You work it out. Accountability. Okay? So these are the few things which I found in one shape or other helps in this, what broadly comes under the finance, funding, and so on, and puts an attitude, and of course, you have a right. You have the right idea, you are executing it right, you are the timed right, and everything is right, the investor will like it. Okay, so that's mostly it, and I'll pause here. That's been my experience. Again, in this company, we are Chennai angel invested, but then I passionate, and you know there is something which is where you have a business, it is not just an idea. And then everything else will follow. Funding is one part of it. Okay, believe me, the investors. I sometime back I asked one of. So I think this was about 6 years back. I was in a panellists event. A friend of mine introduced me to another guy who was heading the Indian operation of a venture fund. So he said, "What do you do?" "No, I'm selling dream." I told him. I said, "What do you do?" "I'm selling money." Okay, he's an investor, so he's selling money because why you want to make a profit out of it. So I'll stop there. Any questions? I'll take it.
When do you think it is too early for investment? Whatever company it is, traditional business, startup. Some startups require revenue to show their traction. Some startups require a huge base of customers to show their traction. So how do you quantify this kind of early, late, or the correct time? How do I find out?
So leave all the monikers out. Okay, let us apply common sense. Okay, you clearly see that you are leaving business on the table because you don't have extra money. That's the ideal time. Okay? For the later stage. If it's the earlier stage, then you have a great idea, you're very convinced by this, you have put together a prototype, you think, okay? That is the time you start working, okay? But always the greatest help is, at least for me, I'm not a business graduate, I'm a computer scientist, so logic and common sense works for me. So you feel that you're leaving something on the table. That's the best time. It also works for them because you could show that you're leaving business on the table. Okay. Today, honestly, because I don't have more cash, I couldn't put more BD guys on the road. Okay. Now this is a good time. Okay. So
If I can just add to that, it's okay. There's a lot of in this kind, so you can see there's actually a lot of what I would call free money out there, and a lot of entrepreneurs are not aware of, for example, government schemes, and they don't also use incubators, accelerators intelligently. I've seen entrepreneurs make a living out of just participating in competitions. I met one just this morning. He's participated in 3 fintech-related competitions, gotten lot of freebies. Companies like these are a little smaller, but there are companies like Google's and Amazon's and Microsoft's of the world who give you lots of credits today. Today, if you're a Microsoft accelerator and all that, you get close to $500,000 or more worth credits and all that. So one is that kind of thing, competitions. Third is government subsidies, grants, etc. Search, for example, biotech, huge amount of money through BIRAC. Okay, medical tech, there is quite a bit of money. See if we can get access to that money, because then you can do a lot of things which require proof of concept, prototyping, validation, etc., without you having to go to an investor. The reason is an investor is expensive and squeezing money. So go to an investor when you can't but help it. Till then, try to avoid going to an investor is my general philosophy. Sorry.
it's great. If I may add my attitude on this, please judge all these things, don't treat it as an ego trip. Okay? So there are, for the events he mentioned, sometimes you can go there and target them because you need PR. You are at a stage where you need PR. So there are a class of events where the upside you'll get is for PR. For some you'll get credits. For some you'll get cash. So you need to strategically target it. Okay? Somebody else was. Are we good?
Any more questions?
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
We'll be going around collecting the sheets right now, and in the meantime, I would like to call upon Vijay to come and speak to us.
We can
I
start.
think we can start.
Great. Okay. Great. My name is Vijay. So I run this company called Codemojo. So we are part of PayPal incubator in 2015. So one classic example is that we literally lived out of accelerators and incubators even after we got funding. So we were part of PayPal incubator for close to a year. Then we got into Microsoft GenX accelerator for 6 months. And we continued with Microsoft Accelerator in Bangalore for 6 months. We literally lived there, and we got our funding in GenX. And currently, we are part of NASSCOM 10,000 Startup Warehouse. So before starting up Codemojo, I had close to 8 years of experience in business development. So I obviously didn't come from a big pedigree college, so that's all the background. And my co-founder is Shoaib, who has happened to be my friend for like 13 years. So we had a good stint. So I'm going to more or less touch around what the others have already said, because we're all part of the same pool, right? So here, let's start with the general misconception that we started with, right? When we were before funding, when we just had a budding idea in our head, right? So one was learning from mistakes, right? So when you look at some other startups, some other previously startup that has done an idea, right? And they have already tried it, they couldn't make it up. So one obvious ego is that, hey, I want to do it much better than them. My idea is kick-ass. I'm going to literally screw this thing entire up, and I have everything there, right? But 90% it doesn't work. you need to go back and understand how they have tried, who else has tried in that space, and is it required for you to pivot well in advance? Because once you start putting your time, your months, your days, your hours, you're already into it, and it's hard for you to come back. So if you feel that somebody has done it, it's good to learn from that part. Go ahead and learn it. It's never too late to pivot any point in time, right? As long as your vision is the same, you're not changing your whole business from a SaaS base to something else. Your vision is the same. For example, we wanted to be in engagement space. Loyalty, engagement, and rewarding is what we dreamt to be in 3 years back, even when we before to start a company. And we are still there. And we have done 3 pivots. We literally have done 3 pivots. One helped us get the funding, second helped us get the scale, and third is getting us into the blockchain. So this is the 3 pivots which has definitely helped us out, and we learned from our mistakes. Number 1. Right? Number 2 is when you start an idea, you feel that this is my secret sauce. This is my code. This is everything. I'm not going to share it with anybody. I'm not going to talk it out to anybody. Right? Like people say, it is like more of putting it out there, testing it out, selling it out. It's not about you keeping it within yourself. Often when you talk to other guys, let's say in a co-working space, in these kind of events, hey, this is what I'm doing, and some guy might say, are you doing it right? So don't try to keep it within yourself. You are good with 2 brains, with you and your founder, but it's always good to have more people who are sharing the same journey, who will come up with their own problems, who they have heard about. It's basically a community that we are part of. So don't keep the secrets with you. Number 1. Number 2. Go public. I've seen this in our case that if we go and talk to a press, if we at least approach a press, if somebody's going to cover it, everything is going to go out in public. Don't worry about it. Just go public. Just go public. Talk about your startup to people. One will find it interesting. They will publish you because, unfortunately or fortunately, you're like stocks. Your startups are basically like stocks, right? I have heard a personal conversation between 2 investors. That's a liberty that you get after spending 3 years. Every investor over a cocktail drink, right? So they say, hey, have you heard about this startup? This is 2 investors. They're doing some pretty good work. I've heard about them here and here and here, and they have been doing some awesome work. So why don't you check out? I think you are into that space. Why don't you check out? So it's just like how they talk about 2 stocks. Have you invested in this stock? No, right? You have to check this out. Unless and until people know about you, right? Beyond your 4 walls, beyond your bedroom, beyond your small office space, or beyond your incubators, nobody is going to know you that you're outside there. Go yourself, apply in Crunchbase, apply in each and every place, Let's Venture. So we were picked up by PayPal because we applied, we were there in Let's Venture. So take your time out, please make yourself available, feel that you're a company, you're not an idea, feel that you're a company, just make yourself available on the places, go public, don't shy away from that, talk to people. Right? Events matter. So often I have seen that people don't participate in events. Hey, I have to finish this today. I'm sorry, this is very, we have done the same mistake, but don't do that. Go for events. Meet people, know your community, know your entrepreneurs. You might get introductions from investors. So it's much better to get an introduction done to a client or to an investor, to even the first project that you do, rather than participating in the event and do your time in the hard way. I'm saying it as a salesman from my side. It's quite tough to do a cold calling. Right? You would end up 60 calls to get 5 meetings or 4 meetings fixed to hear or no. But few introductions that people who like your idea, people who like you are, who want to spend your time, inform somebody that why don't you give the time, this idea sounds interesting, have really worked magic for me and a lot of other people. So whatever I'm sharing with you is not just my experience. I'm talking about experience of around 30 startups who have been part of the different cohorts and all of that. The last one about misconception is the fear, right? The dark side of it.
I'm sorry. There is somebody with a 5269 car over here who's parked it wrongly, so they want you guys to move it a bit. If it's any of you guys here.
5269, right?
No, sorry.
Dark side. I think most of you have seen it. When we started, it was fancy. To only look at the pages of papers of people who got invested. This startup got invested, this got seed funding. If you do track.in, you'll see this month 60 startups. On an average, 60 startups get funded every month, right? That's the fancy side of it. But if you look at their one side in the back end, it's minimum 2.5 to 3 years of hard work that has gone there. The cycle is often 1.5 years to 2.5 years that you have to, most of us have to, right? Run through the mill, get an MVP, get a product up and running, get a traction, get some businesses. As we are progressing, the year is getting tougher. So those are the dark sides. You might have some challenges. If you're not up for it, few of you, if you're not up for it, step back. Because it's going to get tougher. It's not going to get nicer because you're going to get an investment. It's not going to get nice because you got attraction. It's not going to get nice because you got business. It's going to get more and more tough on the other side. So be prepared for it, right? So this is a misconception. Once this is out of the way, we just want to do 3 parts, in terms of when to start raising a funding, right? I mean, when is the right time to start raising a funding, right? We started off doing cold emails. People say yes, don't do it, but we did our work. We did our groundwork and said, these are the list of investors that we need to write to. This is what we need to talk to them. This is the email. We spent close to a day or 2 days, and we wrote them a mail. We have no idea. We had no references. We came from an industry. We didn't have any connections or references, right? Few of them worked out. They gave us a call. Obviously, they will all give a call because they are here to hear out, what you do. But always these calls, like few others mentioned before, that helps you to fine tune your pitch. It's about remember the first interview you have ever given in your life. It's never perfect, right? The third interview, the fifth interview, the 10th, you anticipate what the question is going to be and you're solid. That 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes that you're going to get, you're going to be pretty solid in the whole pitch. You're going to be comfortable. To get to the comfortable level, you need to pitch. You need to pitch every month. Okay, hey, this is the 5 guys I pitched this month. Let me go to the next 5 guys. Let me get the appointment with these guys. Don't worry about it. But be selective about the information that you pass on to them. Hey, if they are getting into detail, understand you don't have a competition portfolio, which is there. But still, if they're getting into detail, you say, are you serious? Let's talk the next level and, let me share information with you if you are serious. Let's ask questions. Don't shy away from questions. But please do pitch. Don't worry about it. Pitch. Then you would know why somebody is frowning, the face reaction, why somebody is not interested in hearing you, what the factor clicks, and everything will get to understand, right? So when to start raise funding? So once you have a MVP, minimum metrics, the product is there. Don't go with the idea state that there is about. You have a nice idea. You have a paying clients. You have a metrics. You have attraction. Go ahead. Start pitching out to these guys. Ask them. What. After these guys will say we are too early. 99% of the reply will be that you are too early for us. Ask them what is too early. Ask the question, what is too early, right? I mean, they said, what do you look at? If what stage you'll consider me? That will help you understand. Let's say if you're looking at a $1 million investment, you will automatically go back to your chart and say, this is the traction I'm looking at. This is the number of clients I'm looking at. This is the month-on-month growth I'm looking at. So these 3 guys will be there. It's always good to know the back calculation done. So please ask a question and somebody says you're too early and say, no, don't say thank you. Just say what is too early. Right? So you'll get the number correctly. Right? What to ask as funding, right? I mean, be very clear about and precise. You're going to an angel. I mean, most of us, will start going to an angel. So don't go with the vision that we are going to a VC. It's always good to go with an angel because you have somebody who you paid a stake of the company, who invests time and money in your idea and also will help you sell you outside. So you can go and do your business, right? You will do, so initially you're doing 100% of the work and pitching to the investors. Now you need to do only 50 to 60% of the work. The 40% of the work, if you do the 60, the work correctly, will be done by the investor, right? So understand that you need just an 18 months of survival. 18 months is your traction line, right? You just calculate how much of money that is required to run your 18 months. Then your business should start giving more money for you to continue sustaining growth. Because for an angel investment, the investment period is 3 years. So 3 years, you should at least give a 3x of return. If that is not giving to a startup, then it's not an interesting startup for them. That's why IoT struggle a lot because it's hardware and software, it's hardware and technology, hardware and idea, right? It's an investment, the hardware. So 3 years is what an angel, most of the angels looks like. And if you have a plan for 18 months and the buffer of another 8 to 10 months, then you're game. So ask that minimum fund that you require, right? That is one. What is money? Smart money versus loud money. People already spoke about it. So if you're going to an investor getting money, understand his connections, what he brings to the table, apart from just putting a money and sitting in your board meetings. So we were invested by Sanjay Mehta. So he's one of the leading marquee angel investors from Mumbai. So he has 67 portfolios in his company. So he himself was an entrepreneur and he had his experience of running his own company, selling his own company, and then he invested in 67 companies, including OU in the early days. OU, Loginext, and these are his portfolio companies, right? So he brought along with himself the CIO Angel Network, which was good for us, the B2B company. So it was easy to validate the idea, easy to scale up, easy to do work with it. So smart money versus loud money, always go for the smart money, even if it is less, right? Third thing in that is negotiate. Right? I mean, we are Indian, we love negotiating. So please go ahead and negotiate a term sheet. Don't fear that I have to accept an 18%. If you have done your traction, if you feel that it's there, negotiate. Show that you care. You care for the 1 or 2% as well, but don't hard negotiate, but still negotiate so that you care about what you're giving out of the stake. How to approach funding, I've already covered you. Write mails, don't worry about it. Ask for introductions, don't shy for introductions. Go for events and understand the pitch. The pitch has to fine-tune to each and everybody, what they're looking at, what number, the subject line, the elevator pitch, whatever they call it as. That has to be fine-tuned to each and every person, right? Somebody who is invested in a portfolio of company, they've already done their allotment, they're not going to look at you. So don't waste time. But still talk to them, then check that whether they can introduce to someone else. Right? So these things they need to do. Finally, I would say that stay grounded, right? Even after raising investment, you need to go subsequent round of investments and stay grounded. If you're a coder, if you're a sales guy, still continue doing your sales, still continue doing your code, although the work is going to come on top of it and keep running, right? That's the final part. And last but not least, there are a lot of new avenues opening up, like one is the grants from the colleges, grants for the governments, etc. Blockchain is also a pretty interesting way. We are going for our ICO in October 15th. So we said, hey, the problem is quite large, and if we cannot find the next level of investment that can buy into the vision, let's go into the ICO part, right? So explore it. If you have an MVP, if you have an idea, so you are not raising investment from one investor, you're raising investment from an average of 5,000 other investors, individuals who believe on your idea is going to invest on you. So keep exploring new avenues, not the traditional ones. Explore new avenues. Blockchain is definitely a good way as long as you have a vision, you have a product, you have an idea. So a lot of companies which are in idea stages, which have a project, which have a beta app, an alpha app, but a vision is good, raise the minimum capital required without diluting the stakes. Of course, there are legal and illegal things that are involved, right, like securities, etc. But if you're clear about the idea, that's another way that you can raise your money, because there's a community behind it. For example, our project is getting translated in 10 languages just because 10 people believe our projects, our currency, the crypto token we're going to introduce is going to be a value tomorrow. We're not paying them anything. There are people close to 500 people who are promoting it in social media because they believe that's going to work tomorrow. So not everything requires money. If you're passionate, if you have attraction, if you're part of incubators, if you have a good idea, please explore blockchain and raising an ICO as well. That's pretty interesting part, right? So open for any candid questions from your side. So pretty much that's from my side and how we raise investment and what are the details.
Yeah, I have two questions. First, like you said in the beginning, so what I want to ask is if like you said if there are already companies which are doing similar thing and you still feel there is a need, like you went to the market, you found out okay still there is a need which those companies cannot target because there will always be some untapped segments which they are not targeting, and if you are doing them and you're building up a product which is different from them and targets that need and into that segment. But still, sometimes what happens is investors don't want to look into it because people have some few companies or some few funded companies have already done it before. So my first question is how do you target that point? How to still get the investor interested in you, given that some companies have already made it. My second question is the USP part as in. So when you're building up a startup in the initial stages, when you're looking for a seed fund as in the initial stages, when you just made a prototype as in, you might not be having say some very killer USP as in which will just get investor as in really interested and like running after you. That won't happen. You might not even have a USP. You might be doing it better than them and maybe in a different way, but that might not count as a USP, but that can be still inspired from somewhere else. So how do you target that USP part? How do you get that into the picture? So these two questions.
Right. So to answer your first question, investors are a network, right? I mean, it could be investing on you, or somebody who invested in Ola, somebody who invested in Uber, somebody who invested in Snapdeal. So they are a network within themselves, as I said. They are a network. It's about together we all need to make money, right? I mean, imagine your angels work in a way, then your let's say your VCs work in a way, then your larger VCs or outside of the country comes into the way, right? So overall idea is that however we work it out, we don't fail. So the concept is they will usually have 3 players in the market. They will not be a monopoly. There'll be 1, 2, 3, like how you had Ola, Uber, taxi for sure. You had Flipkart, Snapdeal, then you had homegrown. So each and every segment will have 3 players, space for 3 players. So you need to look at, are you coming into, how far is the first guy? or the first 3 guys who, if the 3 guys already, I would still say think something else. And invested again, having a traction, unless and you're doing something entirely different, but still on the same line, right? Number 2 is how quickly you can scale up and traction up. Because being a startup, you're still agile. There's something that you can plug and something that you can do very faster and give a quick traction, sustainable traction compared to somebody else along with the revenue coming in, right? Somebody else can't do that. So you need to answer these 2 questions. Is how many players are already there? How far are they from you? And how quickly you can catch up in that and make somebody interesting? And if all the VCs or all the angels who usually are active on that particular period, that 18 months period, have already invested in each of these portfolios, right? If the first 3 questions are like, they already invested, each of them have their own, let's say a food delivery app, 3 major guys have invested in the food delivery app, there's only 10 players already available in the market, please don't do it. Right?
One more, this continuation with this, how do you say how far they are, like in the terms of year or in the terms of milestones?
Tractions, milestone, hear them out. They obviously when they get funded, they'll be in the press. Whatever you hear from the press, minus the 25-30% from whatever you hear in the press. Right? So minus it up, go into the website. There are a lot of tools available. Search the traffic that is coming to the website, the downloads, the reviews that is happening in the apps. So keep going through that. Is it sustainable reviews? Is it all negative reviews? What is the problem that's happening? Is the rating going down? Is the website traffic up consistently? Similar web is one thing that you can look at the website traffic instantly, right? Check it. Is it growing? Is it going down? So this is the homework that you need to do from your side, pretty much, and the press and media and whatever you look at, right? And how far are they from the investment? If they have more than 18 to 19 months from the investment, it means that though they say they have traction, it has not been very exciting for the next guy to come and pick them up. So these are like directions that you need to do from the whole chapter. Second, quickly answering the second question is that please figure out a USP. Because the first thing that if you fill any form for a startup application, whatever it is, right? It's a competition, it's a pitch, it's an event, they ask you for a USP. How different are you? What is your competition? How different are you? Right? It's not about doing better than what they do. It's about having something very unique about yourself that your people are interested to look into it. So start spending more time on it. So and then you can, things will work in. Anything else?
If not for PayPal and Microsoft Accelerator, what would be a happen differently? Where would you have been?
We would have still, we decided ourselves that this is a place that needs to change. So we started off with, they actually helped us a lot. I mean, I would not say that, right? And the learnings are pretty quick. We would have learned slow without PayPal and Accelerator. We would have learned very slow. Because when we started, we wanted to solve the SME mom and pop loyalty solution. We said, hey, the market is $420 billion, put it in the chart and say there is nobody else doing it. Capillaries for the enterprises, and we're going to come in 10 lines in 10 minutes. We're going to sell it to every restaurants, every mom and pop, every groceries. That's a vision, but reality sucks. People don't pay you, you don't get investments, a lot of struggles. Swiggy failed, Tiny Owl failed. You make money, right? I mean, you learn pretty fast from that, right? That's when we got into PayPal. PayPal helped us out to re-innovate the idea. Microsoft helped us out to re-innovate the idea, and because we learned it. If it is not for them, it would have been slow. We would have quit. We would have been slow. I mean, that's for sure. But it would have taken time. Yes, cool.
Let's say,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I'm taking time. Swiggy is pitching to an investor, right? There is already a Food Panda. So Food Panda wants the restaurant guys to go deliver to the customer. Whereas Swiggy has a different model where they send their own. I mean, maybe the USP of Swiggy, but when they are pitching it, they always get a question as in, why don't you ask the restaurant guys to go deliver? You don't have, you have to have a huge organization structure. How do you handle these kind of questions? When the competition's USP comes into the question.
Correct. See, often investors don't expect 1 + 1 = 2 answer. Right? It's about how confident are you in your model. Right? It's about why do you say you need to do this? If I need to have an investment of let's say $1 million in doing this, Swiggy was doing at 11 lakhs turnover 2 years back, right? I mean, in spite of what are the volume of transactions that they have done, it has gone to like 1.2 crores or 3 crores last year or etc. Right? 11 lakhs to 1.3 crores. But the factor is why I need to do it. Because these guys say food is not delivered out, there's a market. So the market is established. There is a market. But hey, look, these guys are doing it. These guys don't want to invest here, right? And they are doing it that way. I'm doing it this way because I see that's a problem. So stick with your answer as long as you're able to back it up with reasons and proof and facts and figures and stats and your own experiences, then you're game. It's about your answer and how confident are you, not about a perfect answer. Cool. Great. Thanks, guys. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Vijay. Now I would like to call upon Shri Harish to come and take up the stage. So he'll be having a PPT. So
Yeah,
just
I do.
get that done.
The best part of doing it in the last is that you just have to summarize. So. All right. I'm a co-founder of a company called aahaa. aahaa Stores is the name of the company. So I can introduce this.
Yes.
Okay. We started out in 2013. What I'm going to tell is purely based on our experience of raising funds. So nothing theoretical in all these things. It's only pure experience of how we went ahead and got some funding from angel company. When we started out, we were 3 people who started out. One of the 3 was in the 30s, and the other was in 40s, another one was in 50s. So we were all seasoned professionals working for large companies, and we wanted to start something, and then we quit our high-paying jobs, and then we started this whole thing. We bootstrapped the company close to 2.5 years. We ran the company with our own savings. There's no outside fund that funded our operations, business development, software development, nothing. It's all our money. We were headquartered in Chennai. We had our first version of our platform 8 to 9 months from our inception, and we went to market only in the 11th or 12th month of our inception. Until then, we sat down and we developed this platform. When we started looking out for funds, it was close to 22 to 24 months from the day of our inception. We had close to 8 months worth of runway in front of us with our own money. The 9th month, we would have actually run out of our money. So we kind of thought that somewhere around 7 to 8 months would be a right time to go ahead and look for investment when you have that money in your hand. It turned out to be a good decision. Our first 12 months or 14 months, we were completely frugal in terms of there was only kitchen expenses that we took home. And a lot of friends and folks referred us to people, and then we got people recruited through friends and folks kind of a thing, because we didn't have a brand, right? So this is when we started looking out for funding. We had close to 30 to 40 paying customers. We had a platform ready, which is a proof of concept kind of a thing. We had a very successful proof of concept in Chennai, paying customers. We had 8 months of our money left out as a runway. Whatever I'm going to tell you in terms of how we raised our funds, what all things we talked to these investors, various investors, and all these things are only hindsight knowledge. I am trying to connect these dots right now. When I went and talked to the investors, we didn't know a lot of these things, right? So please stop me whenever you think you have any questions. It will not be a question and answer session later. One of the biggest and a classic mistake that we made was we had the same pitch for an investor as well as a customer, right? I was into product development and sales and marketing, so I make good presentations, and I tend to overdo the presentations from a customer standpoint, right? So when we went to an investor, we started looking at an investor like how we look at a customer, right? To a customer, we always talked about the need for the customer, what is the solution that we have for a customer, and the value we create for the customer. Everywhere it is the same. You have a B2C startup or a B2B one or whatever it is, you always have these 3 things in your mind, and you tend to make your presentation filling with various versions of these 3 things, right? So we made this classical mistake. All these things came only when we started meeting the investors. The point of time when we decided that we need investments, be it an angel investment or whatever, the first thing that we did was to announce the world that we need investments, right? So we called us friends and folks, we attended the events, whoever I meet, including a customer, we used to tell them that we are in lookout for investment. If you have somebody, can you put them to us, right? So first thing is to put the news out that you are in a lookout for an investment, right? Second thing is that when you go look out for an investment, always have the first introduction email, the subject line, all tried and tested, right? So you always go out looking for customers in a B2B space. You always have a customized pitch for these customers. You approach a company A, you will have a different pitch than a company B, right? Investment world works in a similar way as well. So when you want to go ahead, send an email to an investment company, angel company, always look at their portfolio, try to see what their investment philosophy is, try and see if you can find a match, and then send an email to that company. Always send a very crisp 5 to 6 lines of body of the email, no attachments, nothing. It's going to be only a teaser, trailer to whatever you're going to pitch to them, right? So our motto was to reach out to as many people as possible, as many investors as possible who we think would ideally fit into our kind of a business. So we spent a lot of time, like how we go ahead and look at your market and curate your prospect list. We did that same exercise for an investor list as well. So we ended up having close to 30 to 40 companies. And there are both friends and folks who came back and let us know that there are some few other investors who might be interested. The next thing was to prepare a presentation and go back to them. We always look at this analogy where going and talking to a customer is like impressing a girlfriend, right? Impressing a girl to become a girlfriend or whatever, right? And you go to an investor, it's all about talking to their parent, right? So the need is different. The reason why they invest is completely different. I think Chandu was talking about the team, product, market, and traction, which is completely the fundamental of why an investor would be interested in investing in your company. These things we didn't know, we didn't read anywhere, it was not theoretically taught to us. We kind of talked to different investors, we went and pitched to people, and it kind of organically came together, right? So the first thing that always these investors look out for is whether the founding team has the passion, has the know-how. Do they have the drive for taking this business from point A to point B, right? That's the first thing they want. A lot of investors look for integrity as an thing, as character as well, right? So the team, a founding team, is of paramount importance. So that's a checkbox. The first thing a company would like to tick when they look at a presentation or when you go ahead and do the presentation to an investor. The second thing is the market. Forget about all your competitors and players who are in a similar business and things like that. If the market is huge, investors don't mind multiple players out there, right? So you need to show the investors that you have a market that has unlimited ceiling. The ceiling is not there. All that you have is sky is the limit. So if you are able to see an unlimited, huge market in front of you, if you happen to have that kind of a market, fantastic. Or if you have a specific set of customers that you want to target and that's going to be the addressable market, fantastic. So, but you need to know what the market is. The investor needs to know there is a scalability factor out there and they can easily scale up, right? The third thing is the product. They would want to look at how your product behaves. What is this product? Why is the customer interested in this product? What is the differentiator in this product? So product or a service or a solution, whatever you may call, or a benefit to a customer is what makes this whole deal come up together, right? The investor would be interested to even take it to the next level only if you have these three things gotten together, right? Fortunately for us, we had traction in hand when we went ahead and talked to all these investors, potential investors. We were 24 or 18 months down the line from the inception. So we had a traction. Customers We had a lot of customers signed up. They were using the platform, and they were also paying customers. And since it was 24 months, there were renewals that happened as well. So we had, by nature, we had all these 4 things ticked up. Not at a great scale, but at least we had all these 4 things out there in front of us. When we carried it in our laptop, we had stories in all these four things. One thing in any meeting that we had with the investors, I'm talking about not only the HNIs, I'm actually talking about the proper institutional angel and VC companies, right? All these guys in different forms ask this one question, right? This one question is the fundamental of anything that they do whenever they actually go ahead and invest. This is verbatim a question that somebody had actually asked us. If you die, will the customer cry? Right? So, meaning if you are not there, if you are not a system of record for a customer, if you are not there, would a customer suffer? Right? So they take that as one specific goal for which a company should go ahead and burn their whatever effort. Right? So in some way or the other, you will have to make sure that your product or your idea should go into that bucket where if the customer doesn't use this, he's actually going to miss a lot of things, right? So if you have not built that into your product, the investors would want you to build it, or they come back to you and say that I give you 1 or 2 years, come back to me after 2 years, you are small. The reasons might be anything, right? So the way in which they tell would be different, but at the end of the day, they would not have seen any one of those 4 things or this 5th very important thing, right? Of late, the world is moving towards unit economics, right? So when we went ahead and looked at our business model, we built it with a very, very conscious decision that we'll have to have a path to profitability, right? We have to know how to make money, right? It's like this. The businesses are at different stages. You would be a child, and the goal is to have the child grow to an adult, right? You cannot expect a lot of things in a child, but you will have to know that the child will grow to an adult, right? Will grow to an intelligent adult, right? So what investors expect is they know that this is the time to grow. This is the time to build a top line, but they will have to be told that this is the way that the business will make money. There are different cases like Facebook or Instagram or wherever, where there are instances wherein the founders don't know how to monetize right now, but the investors were intelligent. They knew that this is going to be a system of record. If this is not going to be there, the customer is going to, if this is going to die, the customer is going to cry, right? So when you directly tell them this is my path to profitability, or you indirectly let them know that this is how the business is going to go profitable someday or the other, right? So that's one very important thing that all the investors who we have met in whatever 24 months that we have been in the business ask for is path to profitability. If you look at it, someone was telling about the 2 types of, one is funding and another one is investment, right? If you have a HNI who is investing and you have an institutional investor who is investing, the institutional investor is actually taking care of somebody else's money, right? So these guys actually pool in funds from different investments, different HNIs, and they create a fund. So they are answerable, right? It's not that they have this free money and they are going to put it in 10 different companies and look for some return out of it. So when we go ahead and talk to these institutional investors, one thing that we'll have to have in back of the mind is that they're all fund managers, right? They manage somebody else's fund. So what do they expect out of that fund they are managing? They're expecting a return, right? So if somebody is investing $1 million, in 5 years' time, he would definitely expect a $10 million. If he had invested in at 30 rupees per share, he'd be expecting a 300 rupees share in 2 years, 3 years' time, right? So your business model should have a scalability where you would be able to show him that in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, there would be somebody else who would be coming and helping him exit, at whatever 5x or 10x, right? End of the day, it is number game, right? So if you are able to show a scale wherein you say that, yes, my business can scale up and thereby you can make your money, that's the only thing, end of the day, that would seal the deal for you, right? When you go ahead and talk to these angel funds and VC companies, some of these questions won't be direct, right? They would expect you to kind of come over and let them know in whatever ways possible answers for all these things. Answers for whether your customer is going to cry when your solution is going to die, whether I am going to get a 10x kind of a return in three years down the line or 5 years down the line. Right? So these are some of the questions that you should answer in our elevator pitch or whichever pitch you want. If you are given time, half an hour time in front of an investor, I'm sure you should answer these questions out here. One of the biggest things these investors bring into the table, pre-investment or post-investment, it is some level of enlightenment, right? With whatever experiences that we have as entrepreneurs and founders and things like that, we are confined to a set idea, right? So we think ours is the best idea across the world and we are going to change the world here, right? These guys, when they ask questions, the questions might seem as if it is so rude and they're going to put you down and they're not going to invest in your company and they're high-handed and all those stuff. The only reason these guys are asking these questions is to make sure that they get answers and get convinced and invest the money, right? So any question that an investor asks, whether it is in a very rude manner or a soft manner, the end result is going to be whether I'm going to make the investment or not, right? That's the answer that he would be expecting out of whatever conversation that he's having with you. At the end of the day, his job is to get the money and invest in companies, right? So you are actually helping him do this job, right? Another very important thing is keeping calm and doing the work, right? You go hit 20 companies, you go hit 30 companies. I know that there will be 3 or 4 people who would be interested and it would be dragging for like 3 months, 4 months and nothing would have happened, right? That's when we all press the panic button, right? That's when we feel that, boss, nothing is happening. Should I even go ahead and look at a Chennai and get some money from him? Is it the time when I'm going to short sell whatever I have right now? So that 3rd month and 5th month is when you actually have gained a lot of knowledge by going and talking to all these investors. So the learning out of talking to the first investor should actually go into the pitch of the second investor, right? It works in a very similar way how a pitch to a customer works, right? Your objections will actually define how you are going to go and talk to the next customer, right? So if you have talked to 10 investors, if the 10 investors who you have talked to had given you some 10-15 minutes of time, I'm sure the 11th one will turn up to a successful deal if you have plowed back the knowledge that you have gained out of this 9 to 10 talks that you have with the investors. We would have, even I had pitched to Chandu in 2014 end or something like that. When we were getting ready for our investments, our first goal was to try and see if we can get investments within 5-kilometer radius in Chennai. Right? So we have to start out somewhere, right? So first thing was Chennai Angels, right? So we slowly gotten into the groove of scientifically doing a research and then going and pitching to an investor, right? You get only one chance to go ahead and pitch to an investor. And believe me, every investor is listening to you whenever you are actually pitching into him, right? Don't ever think that he's not listening and he's not interested in things like that. You would have pitched into an investor 1 year ago, a year and a half ago, right? That guy would actually be following you, would actually be looking at all the press releases that are coming up, would be looking at the industry. You never know, he might come back, right? So make it a sincere attempt whenever you go ahead and pitch to all these investors out there. So these are some of the takeaways that we have had while we started getting our funding initiative in our company. Open for questions. Yeah.
So, when you're starting out, so the customer, once we start out and you make a product, so customer is really reluctant to try out your product. So we have to give it for free for some time, so that they are used to the product. And as you said, will the customer cry if you die? So first you have to introduce your service to the customer. So all that, the cost of that operations or all the free bonus things or the welcome offer you are giving. So how do you manage that? There will be a lot of cost, and how long should this promotions should go? Whether it should be 1 month, 2 months, or how do you plan that out? That's the first question, which I want to answer for. And second thing is, how do you get that? What is the point where you define, okay, I got this much traction, so now I think this is the right time. I should go for looking for a angel, as in now he will be more interested, as in. So what numbers should be there as in your startup, so you can actually go for an investor? And I even want to know how much of them should be your paying customers, as in that traction, what percentage should be the paying customers?
I'll take the second question first. So the question is, when is the right time to go to the investor? I think the gentleman answered that question. I'll tell you from my experience on when had been my right time to go to the investor. We were bootstrapped, right? And we were bootstrapped for the first 2 years. And I was telling you, we were having an 8-month runway, right? So the right time we thought for going to an investor, pitching for this or getting funding is when I felt that we need more money for expansion, right? The money that we get from an investor would invariably go into either developing a product or developing a market, right? These are the two things that usually go in there, right? So you will have to now evaluate whether you are in a phase where you are actually developing a product or you are developing a market, right? So sometimes these things happen in parallel. Sometimes one would get more traction, another would get a lesser traction. But if you ask my 2 cents, you are the best person to decide when you would need an investment, depending on what stage are you in these two things, right? If you need more money to develop even a minimum viable product, right? Then go ahead, get the investment done, right? If you think that I have developed a MVP, now I'll have to take it to market. I need this dollars to take it to market. That's the right time to go ahead and take the investment. Each business is different, but end of the day, it actually falls into either of these two buckets, right? Your first question, if I remember right, is how long should I give a free service to a customer, right? You are the best person to decide again, right? So there are a lot of companies. That's the reason why they call it as a welcome offer or a free trial, right? You can always give a free trial or a welcome offer, but it should not become a habit for a customer to prolong that free trial and welcome offer and becomes a free service, unless giving a free service is your business model, right? So if you ask me, if I'm going to bill a customer for 12 months, I'd be okay to give a free trial for 15 days, right? So that's a metric. Given you always go for a 15-20% is the margin that you actually enjoy, right? So the free trial or a welcome offer and all those things are going to actually eat up your margin, right? From a cash flow perspective, right? If you are dependent on the money that a customer is going to give you, I would recommend that you always give him 1 or 2 days of free trial, not more than that, right? If you are not a funded company, you don't have the luxury of helping a customer looking at your product for more than a day or two, then it's going to be only a day or two, right?
So when it comes to agreements, I mean term sheets or investment agreements, what would be some of the most challenging process that you will come across? And sure these guys are going to be hard negotiators and there could be some very challenging clauses, right? As founders, what are the challenging clauses that you encountered and how did you overcome them?
Now, more or less, things have been standardized, right? It's been a little bit of maturity that has come up into the market. Investments have been flowing in for last 8 to 10 years, right? So you always have someone in your side, a chartered accountant or someone or some mentor in your side who would always help you with all these clauses and things like that. If you ask me, there are only 2-3 things that you'll have to keep in mind. At the end of the day, the investors want you to succeed, right? The only way in which they would make you succeed is to make you put all 100% into the company. All these clauses are tuned towards putting your time, effort and money 100% into the company, right? That's number one. Clauses like you should put all your 100% into the company. You should put some amount of money into the company, which is all genuine, right? There will be things like performance attached kind of percentage that you would actually take, right? You will have to be a little careful over there. Assess what is that you would actually be willing to give it to the investor, right? Some whatever percentage, number of shares or whatever it is. And you should be doubly sure whether you would be able to go ahead and make that performance that actually counts, right? The best way all the investors out there is they would expect any entrepreneur to go ahead and under-promise and over-deliver, right? They are okay with promising something and you are delivering that whole promise, rather than promising the moon and you are actually under-delivering things, right? So that's the second thing. Performance linked. You will have to know for sure what is the performance that you would be able to make in coming years, right? The third thing is always comes to the exit part of it, right? So there are several things. When a large investor, institutional investor, as I told you, he is actually managing somebody else's money, right? So if he puts 5 crores, he would actually expect at least 5 crores to come back to him, right? So you always have a 2x, 3x, 1.5x, which have to actually go to him whenever you go ahead and exit or whatever it is, right? So when you exit, when you go out of that business, you successfully sell it, the first company, it's always last in, first out kind of a thing. So this guy who had believed you in the early stages would always have a clause which is 1.5x, regardless of how much money you actually taken because of exiting out of the company. 1.5 or 2x has to go, 3x has to go, and things like that. So you will have to negotiate on that mandatory 1.5x, 2.5x, or whatever it is, depending on each investor out there. The third thing is that some investors call it parenting, right? A lot of entrepreneurs who are very geeky and they are completely oriented towards the product that they are developing, and they need some handholding in terms of finance, managing the money, getting the market developed and things like that. So these guys might come up with some suggestions, recommendations. In some cases, they would say that you will have to hire this guy. You will have to hire this guy for this money. The CFO will be from my side, and all those stuff, which are all genuine as far as the investor is concerned, right? But you will have to talk to them upfront, let them know if you are not comfortable and things like that. At the end of the day, it's your company, right? So that's another thing that you will have to be, I won't say careful about, but that's something that you'll have to put it on the table and let them know. Other than that, it's all standard stuff, nothing, all the handshakes and all these things. First right of refusal and all those stuff are standard. You don't even have to read the fine print of it.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for presenting.
Thank you, Shri Harish. So before we close, I would like to announce the puzzle winners. We have, I think, 6 people who solved the puzzles. Right. So it was. It is Srinivasan KB, Rajesh, Salar, Sri Raghu. Okay. Anustu and Samba Murthy Naidu. So, as closing, I would like to thank all of you for coming here on a Saturday, taking time off and patiently listening to all of our speakers and interacting. I hope we have been able to give you good insights into funding and you have been able to interact with the speakers. Special thank you to both of you for sitting here and being here and interacting with our audience. Also, if any of you guys are looking for a payment gateway, reach out to any of us in the black t-shirts and we will be happy to help you out. As a network, we are now opening the session to networking. You have some roles and soft drinks for you. And yeah, thank you all for being here.
No, thank you.